My brother called me and asked me if I ever heard of the Betty Broderick case. I said no. He told me to look into it. Then he said he knows the owner of the house the family lived in on Coral Reef Avenue before the separation and divorce. So I looked into it, and this is what I found. Betty Biscaglia and Dan Broderick met in 1965 at the University of Notre Dame. Right here in this football stadium during a football game. They got married April 12, 1969. They moved to Manhattan in New York so Dan could attend Cornell Medical School. Right here in this building. While he was attending medical school here, their first child was born. Dan then completed medical school and began attending Harvard Law School. While Dan was attending law school, Betty was the main provider for the family, as Dan was a full-time student. In 1971, their second child was born. In the winter of 1973, when Betty was on her third pregnancy, Dan was away on a ski weekend with several of his law school buddies. Betty had to be rushed to the hospital. Prematurely, she gave birth to a baby boy who did not survive, and she had to go through it alone. In 1974, Dan graduated law school, and the family moved to Los Angeles for a summer. Before moving south to Claremont in San Diego, California. In this area right here. While living in Claremont, both Betty and Dan were working. Betty would be with their two daughters during the day, and a sitter was hired so Betty could go to her night job while Dan was still at work. One night during the summer of 1975, while the sitter was asleep and their oldest daughter was asleep, the younger daughter walked into the living room and screamed. Faulty wires on their new television ignited the curtains, and their new home burned down. They had to move to a tiny apartment nearby with nothing. The fire burned everything they owned. Betty became extremely frustrated with the situation, having all of her responsibilities and dealing with the insurance company over a settlement, while Dan became more and more busy with the law firm he worked for. It was around this time that tension began to build between Betty and Dan, according to their oldest daughter, Kim. After their insurance money came through, they bought another home at 5555 Coral Reef Avenue. Right here. Going to go down to Street View. This is what the house looks like from Google Earth Street View. Shortly after moving in, their third child was born, and it was the family's first boy. And while living here at Coral Reef, their fourth and final child was born. So here I am across the street from the Broderick house that they owned on Coral Reef. And my brother happens to know the owners of this house, and I'm going to get to go in there, and I'm going to go in here first and show you something that's really interesting right in here and right here at this back corner of the garage right over here. So here I am in the backyard of the house. The owners let me come in, and I'm going to show you something interesting here. That here toward the back where they put this cement slab in by the garage door here, you can see this heart sketched into the concrete, and it says Dan plus Betty, which is very interesting. I'm not sure when this went in, but it was probably scratched in when the cement was still wet, or at least wet enough to get this scratched in. With Betty staying at home taking care of the kids full-time and Dan working very long hours, Betty frequently complained that she wanted Dan to spend more time with her and the kids at home. However, according to their oldest child, Kim, their marriage eventually became contentious and tumultuous on a regular basis. Dan continued to work long hours, and as the years passed, the complaining and arguing between the two intensified. Their oldest child, Kim, said, "My mom waited for her happiness and fulfillment to come from my dad, but her neediness and insecurity only pushed him further away." And while they were living in this house, on several occasions, Betty threw objects at Dan out of frustration and anger. She once threw a ketchup bottle at him, but missed. The bottle dented the wall behind him, shattered and splattered ketchup and shards of glass everywhere in the kitchen. Then Dan just sat down and ate dinner as if nothing happened. Eventually, Dan opened his own private practice. He began to make millions of dollars and work long hours, sometimes 14 or 15-hour days. Betty insisted that Dan hire an assistant so he wouldn't have to work so many hours. At Betty's request, Dan hired 21-year-old Linda Kolkina in the fall of 1982 to be his legal assistant. Almost a year later, in October of 1983, Betty began to suspect Dan was having an affair with Linda, but Dan adamantly denied it. The problems in their marriage remained intense and tumultuous, and on Dan's 39th birthday, Betty decided to clean herself up, get her hair done, her nails done, buy some new clothes, and go to Dan's office with a bottle of champagne to surprise him and celebrate. When she arrived, there was evidence Dan already had a little celebration, and he and Linda were both gone. Someone in the office said he and Linda had gone out to lunch and they would be returning. After waiting several hours without Dan and Linda returning, an angry Betty went home, took all of Dan's clothes, threw them off the balcony, put them in a pile, went into the garage, grabbed some lawnmower gas, poured the gas all over his clothes, and lit them on fire. Then she took paint and poured it over the ashes and any pieces of clothing that was left. The neighbors called the fire department, and her children were horrified by the whole event. So here I am at the back of the house, and this is the balcony that Betty Broderick threw all of Dan Broderick's clothes off of and then lit them on fire back here in the backyard. I'm assuming there was probably grass here at that time, but she did throw them off of here. They landed down here and she lit them on fire. So from here in the backyard, the master bedroom used to be from this slider here off to the left. So this is definitely the slider that Betty Broderick came out of with all of Dan's clothes when she threw them over the balcony and then lit them on fire. When Dan came home and learned about what happened, he went into the bedroom with Betty. He had a quiet talk with her. Betty appeared to be satisfied, then Dan acted like nothing happened and soon replaced all of his clothing. While living in their Coral Reef house, a routine appraisal was done on the house, and a crack in the foundation was discovered. The family had to move out to have it repaired. Going to exit street view. And they moved into a rental house on Avenida de las Ondas. Right here, they rented a house on this street. Couldn't figure out which house it was, but it was one of the houses on this street here. While living in this rental house here, Dan left Betty. The final straw was when Betty flung hair gel all over Dan. Dan had enough and moved out. He went back to the Coral Reef home. He stayed upstairs as the foundation was being repaired downstairs. While he was at the Coral Reef home, Betty tried to teach him a lesson. She dropped the kids off at his front door one at a time over several days. However, this backfired on Betty, and Dan was given full custody of the kids. Dan finally admitted he was having an affair with Linda and filed for divorce in 1985. On January 3, 1986, Dan bought a new house at 1041 Cypress Avenue in Marston Hills. This house right here. Betty moved into a house that Dan paid for at 8320 Calle del Cielo. Right here, which was very close to the location where they had the rental house. This is not the actual house she lived in. The actual house has been completely torn down. The whole property was entirely razed, scraped up, everything was moved out, and this is a new house that was built in its place. And if you go down to street view, you can see here, this is what it looks like today, but this was the location that Betty Broderick was living at when she committed the crime. So here I am at the house that Betty Broderick owned and was living in at the time that she committed the crime at Dan and Linda Broderick's new house. So she backed out of this driveway and headed down in this direction to commit the crime. Gonna exit street view. While Betty was living here, Dan was living back at the Coral Reef house. And because she was still an owner of the house, she would show up at the house unannounced and uninvited. One day she showed up at the house here at Coral Reef, and there was a Boston cream pie. When she asked who made it, one of the younger children said, "Linda made it because it's Dad's favorite." Betty then grabbed the pie, went upstairs, smeared it in his bed, over his pillows, on his comforter, went to his closet, smeared the cake or the pie all over his clothing, then went to his dresser and smeared it all over the clothing that was inside the drawers. After that event, Dan changed the locks on the Coral Reef house, which really upset Betty. When she realized she couldn't get into the house anymore, she went around into the backyard, took one of the table umbrellas, broke the back door window, went inside the house, and ransacked the whole place. Broke lamps, threw furniture over, completely destroyed it, and it was said that it looked like a tornado went through that house after she was done with it. As a result, Dan put the Coral Reef house up for sale. Betty wanted more than the 50% she was entitled to. When Dan agreed to give Betty what she asked for, Betty said no and requested even more than she originally asked for. When Dan agreed to her second request, Betty said no, she wasn't interested in selling it. A judge allowed Dan to sell the house. It sold on March 7th, 1986. Betty was furious. She went to the house, went in the backyard, threw a brick through the sliding glass door, poured gasoline on the carpet, then lit it on fire, hoping to burn the house down. However, the carpet did not ignite and the house did not burn down. And right here is the sliding glass door that Betty Broderick threw a brick through when she found out the house sold, broke into the house, and then poured gasoline all over the floor and tried to light the house on fire, but the house wouldn't burn because the carpet was good carpet and wouldn't catch fire. Now, the owners told me that this had to be the sliding glass door because these set of doors are the ones that they had put in personally. These were not here when they bought the house. This was the only sliding glass door at the house, so that is definitely the one she threw the brick through. After attempting to burn down the Coral Reef house, she then drove her Suburban to Dan's new house. Right here. Go down to street view. This house here. When she arrived, she took her Suburban and rammed it into the front door, backed up and rammed it again, and did that several times. So here I am out in front of the former house of Dan and Linda Broderick. And you can see right here, that's the front door that she drove the Suburban through. She did this while Dan and all of her kids were here at home. Dan was able to get out of the house and come around front. When Betty exited her vehicle, she came at Dan with a big butcher knife. He was able to restrain her until the police arrived. She was placed in a straitjacket and taken to Mesa Vista Mental Hospital for a 3-day hold. Dan got a restraining order against her, but she didn't care and violated it numerous times. Even after all of this, Dan still gave Betty $127,000 from the Coral Reef house sale, and he took $47,000. The divorce was final in March of 1989, and on April 22, 1989, Dan married Linda Kolkina right here in the front yard of their Marston Hills home. Betty complained they married close to what would have been Dan and Betty's 20th anniversary on April 12, 1989, and she suggested they did it on purpose. They also went on a cruise for their honeymoon, which was very similar to the one Betty wanted to go on for their 20th anniversary. Going to exit Street View. 7 months later, about 5 a.m. on November 5th, 1989, Betty backed out of her driveway at 8320 Calle del Cielo, right here, and headed down this street. She said she doesn't remember the route she took, but she ended up going to Dan and Linda's home at 1041 Cypress Avenue. Right here. She used the key that she stole from her daughter Kim to enter this door right here. She walked across through the kitchen, went toward the front of the house, turned, came up the steps, made a left turn. The master bedroom was behind these two windows. The master bedroom door was about here. She went forward toward the front of the house and went through a door that was a TV room that was attached to the master bedroom, entered the master bedroom from approximately here, and committed her crimes right about here in this bedroom. After being arrested, this is what Betty said. Linda yelled, "Call the police." I screamed no, and I just fired the gun, and the noise went off, and I grabbed the phone and got the hell out of there. Betty was found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder and is currently serving time at the California Institute for Women in Chino Hills, California. She has been denied parole twice and will be up for parole again in 2032 when she is 84 years old. So there you have it, the Betty Broderick incident that occurred November 5th, 1989 in San Diego, California, on Google Earth, right here on the Forrest Haggerty channel.